Hello everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the G-Spot. This is the place where we talk about all sorts of things related to unconscious human behavior and the way hypnosis can help you. Today is the first part of a series of episodes that we're going to be doing on our sexual personality and the way that this plays a role in our intimate partner relationships, and to a larger extent to our other relationships as well. Now, this particular theory of behavior is called emotional and physical sexual suggestibility. I know that's a mouthful, isn't it? So for short, we're just going to call it E&P. So what is this and where did it come from anyway? Dr. John Kappas is the founder of HMI College of Hypnotherapy in Tarzana, California. And over 50 years ago, in his clinic dealing with clients, he began to observe these two very baseline forms of behavior that everybody was experiencing in the conflicts in the context of their personal relationships. He named these E&P, emotional and physical, because of the way that people tended to behave. What were their unconscious motivations and the way that they expressed themselves in these relationships. First and foremost, I want you to consider that we are never 100% emotional or physical. We're going to be 60-40, 70-30, 55-45, somewhere on that spectrum. Very rarely, if ever, is someone 100%. I've been doing this for going on 12 years now, and I've seen thousands of people, and I've only seen maybe two that are at a 90 or 95% on either end of the spectrum. I'm going to give you a brief overview of each type, and then you might start to sense and see where you might be on the spectrum. We call the emotional sexual the emotional because they tend to live in their head. They tend to intellectualize, to perseverate or ruminate. They tend to doubt themselves and what they want or what they think is best. They're usually afraid of making the wrong choice or the wrong decision. And they tend to have a bit of a disconnect between what they're thinking and what they're feeling in their body. The emotional sexuals feel their emotions very strongly, but they often don't know how to express them or communicate them. And so what will happen is someone can see them very tense and they say, "Hey, what's up? You all right?" And they're, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm all right." I'm like, "Well, you don't look all right." Because the emotional has this disconnect between what they're thinking and feeling, and often it's not until it's brought to their attention and if they feel they're in a safe place that they can then address them. The emotional sexual, at the underlying core, has a fear of losing control. Losing control of their mind, their body, their autonomy, their finances, their security, or their survival. And so they're always trying to stay in their heads to problem solve and predict in a way that's going to help them to feel safe and secure in the world. And then, if they feel safe and secure in the world, financially or professionally, then they're going to be able to feel safe in an intimate partner relationship and then relax. Now, we call the physicals because they physically experience the world through their bodies. They have a feeling in their body first, and that translates to a thought or an emotion. The emos over here, they're having a thought or a feeling first, and then that translates into their body. But these physicals, they're feeling everything, and they generally know what they want, and they know what they think, and they're gonna let you know too. They tend to be dominant personalities within the relationship, the one to come forward and to either pursue or persist long after the emo has taken a step back. Now, physicals at their core, their unconscious fear is the fear of being rejected, of not being included, of not being loved. And so what will happen is that when they feel threatened in the relationship, their physical energy is going to come forward and they're going to push forward, and to make sure to get their needs met, they're going to come forward physically. Now, this also means verbally as well. So that in a nutshell are E&P, emotional and physical sexual personalities. There is so much more to it. There are so many other things that can influence. So I wanted to give you this little taste first so that you can say, am I someone who lives in my head and then I translate that feeling into my body? Or am I someone who lives in my body and then that translates to a thought or feeling? The place that we see E&P behaviors show up most is when a relationship is in conflict. In the early stages of the relationship, when we're going through the honeymoon phase, remember, we're never 100% either or. So when we're in that kind of limerence where we're just kind of in love, we're kind of showing our best sides. And so our subdominant traits are going to come up. This means that the emo is going to be a little bit more present, a little bit more with their partner, a little bit more attentive. And the physical is going to downplay some of their maybe neediness or their insecurity. Because when the subdominant traits come up for each one, it allows them to present to the other partner a version of their true selves, who they really are, but it's not the whole picture. The emotional and physical sexual also have the same priorities, but they're just in a different order. The emotional sexual tends to get their sense of identity, their sense of self-worth and self-value from their work, or their hobbies. Their identity just seems to come from what they do. Below that are their hobbies. So up here we got work, down here we have hobbies, and over here we have families and friendships, and down here we have sex. So the emotional sexual, at the unconscious level, their priority is their survival, their financial security. Then how do they get their needs met? Through their own hobbies, their own me time, so to speak. Then family and friends come into the picture, and down here is sex. The physical has the same priorities, but in a different order. So for the physical sexual, the number one thing for them is sex. Because sex will prove to them that the relationship is okay, that they're loved. Remember, if they fear rejection, sex and physical contact is going to be the proof that they are worthy and deserving and loved. Below that come friends and family. Down here are hobbies. At the very bottom is work. So you can see how if work is a priority for the emotional and it's not for the physical, and if sex is a priority for the physical and it's not for the emotional, well, once we're beyond that honeymoon stage, that's where the conflict begins, baby, and that's where E&P gets really juicy. So again, we tend to end up with our equal and opposite match. Now, this might represent itself with, let's just say, a 60% E and a 60% P. If it's on the lower end of the scale, you might have a 55% E and a 55% P. But ultimately, somebody's going to be playing the role of emotional or physical when we get to those really close levels of match. So let me give you an example of how this would play out in real life. Imagine that you are at a party, and there's various people there, as there usually are at parties, and you see someone sitting over in the corner, and they're fairly quiet. Maybe they're just by themselves. Maybe they're talking to one other person, just having a quiet conversation. Then you see over here another person walk into the room, and they just seem to glide in. Everybody sees them, everybody notices them, and they like the attention. They make themselves seen, they make themselves known. They kind of go like a little bee and pollinate all the different little conversations and people who are having their experiences. At some point in time, both of these people are going to catch each other's eye. And at the unconscious level, that person who is very outgoing and very physical, right? They were just physically there, moving all around. They're going to look over at that emo and say, look at them. There's a challenge, right? You probably heard that. Maybe you've experienced that. And then you have the other person who is over there being all quiet and just more subdued. They happen to see that very outgoing person and they went, I think I might want a piece of that. Now, the way that an E and P would complement one another is especially in the beginning. Being within our equal and opposite partner gives us the opportunity to behave in a way that, while it's not our baseline, it still makes us feel good. That emo does enjoy the ability to be more the pursuer, and the physical does enjoy the ability to sit back and be pursued. The challenge comes in later when the relationship goes into more the plateau phase or the everyday phase, and then the physical's not getting the attention, and the emo goes back to work and goes back to their hobbies as things settle and shake out. Now, it's important to recognize that both of these behaviors are normal. Neither one is better or worse, good or bad, they're just normal. And in future episodes, we're going to go into how these equal and opposite behaviors can present themselves in different stages of the relationship, whether it's the very beginning, the plateau stage, or in conflict. What I invite you to do is, as a result of maybe thinking about E and P a little bit, start to consider where you might be, how you might feel. But what we're going to go into is looking and see how, when these different phases present themselves with opportunity, do we learn to resolve the conflict? How do we bring unwanted or negative behaviors down? How do we stop behaving in a way that triggers the behavior in our partner that we don't like? And this is where hypnosis comes into play. Because if somebody is behaving in a really exaggerated way, maybe they are too isolated, too shut down as an emo, too disconnected from their body, or if they're too insecure, feeling very anxiety attachment style, as they say, then we can go in with the hypnosis and see, how did this person learn to be this way? Were there traumas or experiences that have echoed out into the present moment? And how can we de-escalate those behaviors so that they can feel more comfortable in their own bodies and in their own relationships and bring more harmony to the partnership? Now, whenever I bring up E and P, whether it's in a private context or with my clients, The number one thing I hear is, Gila, how do you know what's happening in my bedroom? How do you know what's happening in my relationship? How do you know what's happening at my dinner table? And you're gonna learn through a series of episodes we're gonna do here exactly why this information is not just important to an understanding of ourselves, but how we can create more balance in our relationship, more harmony. If you would like to know more about where you might be on this sexual suggestibility, then I invite you to go to my website. The link is gonna be down below in the comments, and you can fill out a sexual suggestibility assessment. This is gonna be the way that you are behaving right now in this relationship. If you're not in a relationship, think back to your previous relationship. But listen to me carefully when I say that one of the most important things about ENP is that who you are in a relationship with is going to influence how you behave. So if you are a low physical and you're in a relationship with a high emo, that's going to cause you to be more physical. And the opposite is also true. Now, as you're filling out this assessment, answer it with your first impulsive yes or no. It's going to say, do you sometimes, or do you always, or do you sometimes? Just go with your first response, just like they tell you in school, right? Answer the first thing that comes to mind. And then put down below your score. I'm curious to see if you're at E or a P. And if you have any questions that come up during this, put them in the comments below as well, and I will personally weave those into the next episode or a future episode on this particular topic. So to wrap it up, emotional and physical sexuality is just a way of behaving. We can learn to understand how we were imprinted with this behavior, and when it becomes exaggerated and causes problems in our relationships, there are solutions and answers, and hypnotherapy is the way that you can get there more quickly than your thinking mind could have ever once thought possible. It's been great spending time with you here in the G-Spot, and I look forward to the next time where we get to talk about some more ENP.